You pretty much invariably speak like you are an expert, and you usually aren't. Time to delete my channel, I guess. Alright, so this was a comment on a recent video where I had the audacity to respond to knife instructor Paulo Rubio on Jesse Enkamp's channel. And it read,
"It's kind of weird how Skall, knowing almost nothing about knife fighting, somehow thinks he's qualified to distinguish what's a valid perspective on it."
Ouch. Just to make it clear, I'm not offended by that comment, and I'm not trying to go after the person, which is why I blurred out the name. And I get it. I wasn't going into this just trying to pwn someone on the internet. Do people still say that these days? I don't know. In internet years, I might as well be a gray old man sitting on a rocking chair on the front porch. Anyway, kiddos, it's time to listen now.
You, sir, are a scoundrel for showing the use of a tobacco pipe, failing to immediately and explicitly condemn such use, thereby directly and irresponsibly leading youth down the path of addiction, culminating in them smoking crack.
What I'm demonstrating here is what's known as a straw man fallacy, with a dash of slippery slope for extra flavor. Of course, people make assumptions all the time about who seems trustworthy and who doesn't, or what seems legit or sus. Anyway, let's see if we can reach some kind of point here. My problem is with you, not with him. You have a massive community who treats everything you put out as gospel, and that's a problem. Well, if you people treat everything I say as gospel, you need to unsubscribe now. Get the hell out of here. You're not supposed to do that. I'm just an idiot with a camera. I'm not holding self-defense classes or anything like that. I'm just sharing a passion of mine. I was adding my perspective that's based on the research and practice I've done myself, which in all fairness, you couldn't know much about because it happened before my channel took off. When I was a healthy young man, I was big into self-defense and soaked up a lot of material. Listening to actual experts, reading about it, reading testimonies and first-hand experiences of various armed encounters, and learning techniques that are being taught to me by instructors, using them in sparring, etc., etc. This is a certain pool of knowledge. It's limited, for sure. I'm not claiming to be a master at anything really, other than making a fool of myself. By the way, don't smoke, kids. It's bad for you. Back to the claim. You speak like you're an expert. What I'm doing here is just nerding out for the fun of it. You need to listen to the competent instructors with a lot of experience who are also in fighting shape. Anyway, so I asked for specific examples of what that person has a problem with, because if I'm just talking out of my ass, it would be very easy to dismantle what I say and pick apart the arguments and show how it's wrong. Oh. Hang on. While finishing the editing of this video, I'm getting a notification for a reply from that individual 4 days later. The thing is, I'm not a knife expert, so I'm not in a position to criticize specific arguments. My experiences with unarmed martial arts and swords, that does put me in a position to say that sword fighting, particularly with longer swords, doesn't translate to knife fighting in any meaningful way, which is to say that your HEMA background doesn't qualify you to determine what is or isn't a realistic take on knife defense. Dagger fighting is part of HEMA, as is grappling. You're essentially speaking from ignorance to thousands and thousands of people, which is deeply irresponsible. If in that video I had been like, if you get attacked with a knife, that's what you gotta do. But there was no commentary on techniques in that video. It was about mindset, how to tell that someone is about to attack you, how the brain processes a dangerous situation, what the purpose of training is to prepare for that, etc. Again, under the disclaimer of this is something that interests me that I like to talk about, this is for your entertainment, I'm not teaching anyone self-defense. We're going to be talking about this for the sake of entertainment and education to a limited degree, by which I mean, do not attempt anything you see here. Stay out of trouble, do not try to get into a knife fight or anything like that. My interpretations here may very well be flawed, or some of it may be completely wrong. Just keep that in mind. Let me ask you, how many videos have you made that you later regretted because of the misinformation that they unintentionally spread? 23 exactly. No, I'm kidding. A few. It happens, which is exactly why over the years I've become more careful with specifying things. Like the research I found is this, or, here are your sources, stuff, blah, 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 all of that, which in this case, here's the source, here's the video that I'm commenting on, here's the expert talking, and here's my opinion based on my personal experience. And if there was actual misinformation in that video, I'd be happy to acknowledge that and admit that I was wrong about it, maybe even take down the video if this is something dangerously misleading. Like if Paulo Rubio himself came out and said, what you said in that video is bullshit, he should apologize. I would. What am I going to do? The guy could shank me in a heartbeat. Or if Jesse came out and said, hey, I don't appreciate how you ripped off my video and didn't add anything of value, but he commented on this video and it sounds like he's fine with it. I don't know. The difference is that now a lot more people will see your videos and take you seriously because your channel is larger. Pfft. No, okay, some people do that. If you do, if you take someone seriously just because of the size of their channel, you need to stop right now and get off the internet. I will admit though, there is a bit of a selfish element in making videos because I've learned a lot over the years from being corrected in a constructive way. And by constructive, I mean when someone specifically responded to something I said and told me, hey, this is why that's wrong. That was a great learning experience. Making videos on YouTube, rather silly ones at times, over the course of the last 16 years has helped me grow a lot personally, and I'm grateful for that. Now, I'm sorry that sometimes it came at the expense of regurgitating misinformation and all that. I've always tried to avoid that, but sometimes you just don't know any better. Dunning-Kruger effect and all that. Based on what I have learned, I'm pretty confident that there's nothing glaringly wrong in that video or no dangerous information that I put out there that might put someone into a precarious situation. That being said, even though I've been nitpicking the comments of this person, I do appreciate the skeptical mindset. I'd rather have someone be like,
who the hell are you? What are your credentials to have an opinion on this?
Rather than,
yes, master, teach me.
Uncritically. Anyway, anonymous critic, I hope you don't feel attacked. I know that I've poked some fun at you here and there. It was meant in a lighthearted way, and again, I appreciate the skepticism. In the meantime, I'll selfishly continue talking about things that interest me. You know what they say, ignorance is bliss. When it comes to how trustworthy people are, I like to think of it as a bell curve of bullshit, where the scale is how factually correct someone's statements are. So on the one end, you have 100% correct statement based on legit verifiable evidence, and on the other hand, completely made up nonsense. If you take the average, if you were to add up the accuracy and truthfulness of every statement that someone makes, and to then see where they end up on average, I do think it would be mainly a bell curve, where a lot of people make a lot of correct statements, a lot of inaccurate statements, a lot of half-truths, mixed bags, whatever, and then there are people who gravitate more toward one end. They're just chronic bullshitters, and people who are just more knowledgeable on the other end. And you should never automatically assume that someone is right about something just because you like that person. I think it's very important to be skeptical, especially on the internet, where there's a lot of misinformation and questionable sources, or simply statements without sources at all, citation needed and all that. But of course, you still need a certain amount of open-mindedness to learn something. If you close yourself off against new information entirely and just suspect everything is bullshit, then you're probably not going to learn too much. It's easy to postulate a Goldilocks zone where you're open-minded enough to consider new information, but not so naive that you just run with everything. It's a healthy skepticism, right? The problem is, how do you know whether you're in that Goldilocks zone? You don't. There's no way to measure it. It may be easy enough to distinguish an absolute charlatan from a renowned expert with a wealth of verifiable evidence, but in between, it's not quite so easy, right? Especially if you're not an expert in the field yourself. So that's why people end up just believing someone, an appeal to authority fallacy, basically, where they somehow made up their mind that this person knows what they're talking about, so they're just going to believe everything that that person says. And yeah, if you don't have extensive knowledge in the field, it may be pretty difficult to know, is that person talking out of their ass, or do they know what they're talking about? So yeah, be skeptical, just don't overdo it and attack the argument, not the person. Thanks for watching this clueless idiot. I'm sure you learned nothing.